Hello, I'm Little Historian, and today we're racing through over 2,000 years of French history, from wild forests and Celtic warriors to kings, revolutions, and the modern republic. Get ready for a whirlwind journey through the incredible story of France, all in just 10 minutes. Let's begin. Before there was France, there was Gaul, a land of Celtic tribes like the Aedui, Arverni, and Belgae. They worshipped nature gods, painted their bodies with blue dye, and lived in hill forts. But their world changed forever in 58 BC when Julius Caesar invaded. Over the next decade, Caesar defeated a fierce resistance led by Vercingetorix, a Gallic chieftain who united many tribes against Rome. Despite his brilliant defense at the Battle of Gergovia, Vercingetorix was captured at Alesia in 52 BC, and Gaul became a Roman province. Rome brought roads, Latin baths, amphitheaters, and cities like Lugdunum, today known as Lyon, Massilia, future Marseille, and Lutetia, future Paris. Roman Gaul thrived for centuries, blending Celtic roots with Roman culture. But by the 400s, the empire was collapsing, and new invaders were on the horizon. In the vacuum left by Rome, a Germanic tribe known as the Franks took control. In 496 AD, their king Clovis I converted to Christianity, a turning point that aligned France with the Catholic Church for centuries. The Merovingian dynasty ruled for a time, but true power shifted to the Carolingians, especially Charles Martel, who stopped the Islamic expansion into Europe at the Battle of Tours in 732. His grandson, Charlemagne, became king of the Franks in 768 and was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 800. He expanded his empire across Western Europe, promoted learning, built schools, and unified laws, a shining light in the so-called Dark Ages. When Charlemagne died in 814, his empire was divided, and the western part, future France, would never be the same again. The Middle Ages saw the rise of feudalism, kings, vassals, peasants, and knights. Fortified castles dotted the countryside, and power was deeply local. But kings slowly strengthened the monarchy, starting with Hugh Capet in 987, founding the Capetian dynasty. In the 11th and 12th centuries, France took part in the Crusades, sending knights to the Holy Land. Cities like Paris and Rouen flourished, and universities and Gothic cathedrals rose, like Notre Dame de Paris, begun in 1163. Then came disaster. The 100 Years' War, which lasted from 1337 to 1453, a brutal conflict with England over claims to the French throne. Key figures include King Charles V, Bertrand du Guesclin, and of course Joan of Arc, a 17-year-old peasant girl who claimed divine visions. She led the French to victory at Orléans, but was captured, tried for heresy, and burned at the stake in 1431. Nevertheless, after her death, the French continued to rally. Under Charles VII, they pushed back the English, reclaiming much of their land. The war finally ended in 1453 with a French victory, leaving only Calais in English hands, and France more unified and powerful than ever before. The 16th century brought Renaissance culture, inspired by Italy, with artists like Jean Clouet and poets like Pierre de Ronsard. But it also brought chaos. Religious wars erupted between Catholics and Huguenots, which were French Protestants. Henry IV, originally a Protestant, famously converted to Catholicism. He issued the Edict of Nantes in 1598, granting religious tolerance, a rare act for the time. Then came Louis XIII and his powerful minister, Cardinal Richelieu, who centralized royal authority and laid the groundwork for absolutism. But it was Louis XIV, the Sun King, who truly embodied it. reigning for 72 years, Louis XIV built the Palace of Versailles, fought numerous wars, and declared, "L'État, c'est moi." I am the state. France became Europe's most powerful kingdom, but also one of its most indebted. By the late 1700s, France was boiling with tension. The clergy and nobility lived in luxury, while the vast majority, the Third Estate, paid heavy taxes and had little power. Enlightenment thinkers like Rousseau and Voltaire inspired calls for equality, liberty, and reform. In 1789, the revolution began. The Third Estate broke away, formed the National Assembly, and demanded a new constitution. The storming of the Bastille symbolized the end of the old order. Soon, the monarchy was abolished, and King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were executed. But the revolution turned dark. The Reign of Terror, led by Robespierre, brought mass executions and fear. Then rose Napoleon, a brilliant general who took power in 1799. As emperor, he introduced reforms like the Napoleonic Code and expanded French territory across Europe. His downfall came after a failed invasion of Russia and final defeat at Waterloo in 1815. Yet his legacy and the revolution's ideals would shape modern France forever. The 19th century was a time of upheaval and reinvention. After Napoleon's fall, France swung between monarchy, republic, and empire. The Restoration monarchy gave way to the July monarchy under Louis Philippe, but revolution returned in 1848, ushering in the Second Republic. Soon, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power. By 1852, he declared himself Emperor Napoleon III, launching the Second Empire. He modernized Paris with wide boulevards and new railways, expanded the economy, and projected French influence abroad. But defeat in the Franco-Prussian War in 1870 brought his reign crashing down. The Third Republic followed, a fragile but lasting democracy. This was also France's golden age of culture and innovation. Impressionist painters, groundbreaking scientists, and booming cities defined the Belle Époque. And in 1889, the Eiffel Tower was unveiled at the World's Fair, a symbol of French modernity and ambition. The 20th century began with hope, but it was soon shattered by the horrors of World War I. In 1914, France was pulled into a massive conflict that turned its northern regions into a battlefield. Trench warfare defined the struggle, with epic and devastating battles at the Marne, the Somme, and especially Verdun, where French and German troops fought for months in muddy, blood-soaked trenches. Over 1.3 million French soldiers were killed, and entire villages were wiped off the map. After the war, France rebuilt but remained wary of Germany. Then came World War II. In 1940, Nazi Germany invaded. The north was occupied and the south formed the Vichy regime, a government that collaborated with the Nazis. But resistance grew. Charles de Gaulle led the Free French from exile, while brave civilians formed the Resistance, sabotaging the occupiers. By 1944, Allied forces, with help from French fighters, liberated Paris. France emerged wounded but proud, determined to recover and rebuild once again. Post-war France struggled through decolonization and political chaos. The Fourth Republic collapsed during the Algerian War, and in 1958, de Gaulle returned, creating the Fifth Republic, with a strong presidency and a new direction. In the following decades, France modernized rapidly. It built a strong welfare state, became a nuclear power, and took a leading role in the European Union and NATO. The Trente Glorieuses, a 30-year period of economic growth, brought economic boom, while culture, fashion, and science flourished. Leaders like Mitterrand, Chirac, Sarkozy, Hollande, and now Macron have faced new challenges: globalization, terrorism, climate change. Yet, France continues to blend tradition with progress, remaining one of the world's most influential nations in both politics and culture. France's history is one of revolutions and monarchs, invasions and ideas, poets and emperors, a nation that's reinvented itself again and again and left a global mark every time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me next time for the story of another country in just 10 minutes.